came back to her. Going somewhere special? What a dumb question to ask a teenager. She laughed and shook her head, and thought a little wistfully that her own evening was turning out to be nothing special at all. The last couple of weeks she'd taken to spending a good deal of her off time with Chip Maloon. Probably too much. Chip was the first white guy she'd ever been with, and since they both agreed there was no future in it, she had to wonder if she wasn't playing out some kind of father thing, her own daddy being a kalunat like Chip, who'd abandoned her and her mother when she was 6. Sometimes even casual relationships were so hard to decipher you had to take time out or risk going crazy. Picking up her hair oil, she climbed the wooden steps to the detachment and looked forward to a long, cold shower and an early night alone. The following day she got up early, packed some dried fish, her Remy 303 and her fishing rod and lure, and drove her ATV out past the military camp onto the harsh, rocky landscape of the polar desert. The joint demands of work and Chip had left too little time for exploring the terrain, and she was feeling the familiar pull of open ground. A swollen, rushing river meandered through the rubbled plain that opened into a broad bay. The land was dotted with sedge meadow and hummock tundra, and was unlike her home terrain in subtle ways that only someone who had made their living on the land on Ellesmere Island would notice. The tundra here was, if anything, more beautiful than at Autisac. A jewel box of saxifrage and Arctic poppies set off against soft limestone gravel, fields of black basalt splashed with map and blood-spot lichen, and for hours she meandered happily along thin trails, stopping every so often to collect goose eggs or fish for char by the river, navigating only by the man-shaped cairns, or Inuksut, silhouetted against the summer sky, whose granite arms pointed the way back to the settlement. On her return in late afternoon, there was a note waiting for her in the tent. She put down the fish she'd caught, wiped her hands on her summer parka, and picked it up. A ranger friend of her ex-stepson had swung by to say that he was hoping to come into town that evening and would drop in on her. Willa Inukbuk was stationed at a rappel training camp a few kilometers from Camp Nanook, the summer military encampment established by Canadian Joint Forces North as part of their regular Sovpat sovereignty patrol exercises. Her heart quickened at the thought of Willa's visit. She and the kid had history together, mostly bad, mostly her fault. She'd always loved his brother Joe a little too much and Willa never quite enough. Her drinking, his drug habit, and the breakup with Willa's father, Sami Inukbuk, hadn't helped. It was only after she'd lost Joe that she realized how much she missed his brother. In the year since Joe's death, Willa had stopped drinking and smoking weed and got himself together. Joining the Rangers was one of the few good decisions he'd made in adult life. Another, even more recent, had been to set aside his resentments and try to rebuild a relationship with his ex-stepmother. Until now, she had always been the one seeking forgiveness, and Willa had always rebuffed her. Now it seemed that things between them might finally be thawing. Setting aside the plumpest Arctic char and a handful of goose eggs for their supper, she gutted the remainder of the fish, pegging them on the line to dry in the sun, laid the fire with Heather and Pete to light on Willa's arrival, then went to the store and bought a packet of his favorite chocolate chip cookies for $10 and returned to the tent to tidy up. The note hadn't given a specific time. Inuit never planned things that way. She was happy to bide her time. While she waited, she reminded herself of the good times she'd shared with the boy before her drinking took hold, and he stopped wanting to be around her. Like the first time they watched Laurel and Hardy together, and he asked if everything in the South was black and white. Or the summer he and Joe had caught their first harp seal, and Willa stuffed his pillow with the blubber and said it was because it was soft, even though they both knew it was because he was so proud of becoming a hunter.